What was the final straw that ended a lifelong friendship? Story 1. When I was a freshman in college, I shared a room with my best friend from high school. I kept a diary that I wrote in every day, and I would hide it in my locked closet. One day, I came back from class to find her reading out loud from my diary to a group of our friends. She had broken into the closet just to get the diary? I haven't spoken to that b-bye to Moikas in 30+ years. Reply 1, this happened to me, but it was my younger brother reading to my siblings and mom. I was 12? Effed me up a little bit. 20 years later, my now ex-boyfriend read my journal twice. Hit a core wound, and I could never trust him after the first time. Story 2. My best friend of over 20 years, we both had kids about the same age, and our daughters were also best friends. She left her then 15-year-old with me for a week while she went on a trip to Bali, no problem at all, and her daughter attempted to end her life. I took her to the hospital, got care for her, sat by her bed for 3 days, made sure she was set up with a social worker, got her connected with the local mental health unit and youth services team, and put a plan in place to help her recover and move forward, etc., etc. Obviously, I'd called her mom on day 1 and kept her appraised, but this woman not only didn't change her flights and come home, because it would have cost $200 to change the flights. She literally told me, "Oh, you don't have to go to the hospital every day to sit with her. That's what the nurses are for." And then when she finally got back, she flipped out at me for parenting her child behind her back. I'm still in contact with the kid. She's living independently and working as a baker's apprentice. She's gone no contact with her mother, but she still rings me up when she needs a grown-up to talk to. I will never speak to that friend again. Reply 1. Wow, that kid needed somebody desperately and you stepped up where their parent would not. There are a lot of kids who went through it and now they do not have an adult to call when they need one. Good on you for being there for them. Story 3. I felt that I was doing all the legwork. I started every conversation, was the first one to email, text, etc., so one day I decided I was going to wait for her to message first. And sure, here we are, 18 years later. Reply 1. The same thing happened to me. My best friend moved out of state. I would text and call, but I eventually realized I was the one making the effort, so I stopped reaching out. I hit my breaking point when, about a year after she moved, we were taking a road trip and would pass through her city. She seemed excited to see us, but on the day of, canceled. We said we'd catch her on the way back. She agreed and canceled that day too. I haven't spoken to her since. It was painful, but the old saying, if someone wants to see you, they will make time to see you, is true. I guess the friendship meant more to me than her. Reply 2. That's where I'm at with some of my extended family. I love them, but every time I go over there they say, don't be a stranger, but just absolutely refuse to communicate with me outside of that. They never tell me when there's a barbecue, never let me know they're having a party, and when I brought this up with them they said, I shouldn't have to call you. So I'm not going to interact with them again unless they initiate the conversation. I have a feeling that I probably won't see any of them again until there's a funeral. Reply 3. How the EF are you supposed to know there's a BBQ if no one tells you? I'm fat, so I can sniff out a BBQ fairly easily, but that's not the same. Reply 4. The family of my dad is like that. They live all in the same city except for my dad and his family. Me, siblings, mom. They never once visited, even when invited to stuff. We always visited them, and then they'd talk about their family gatherings we also never really knew about. We live 2 hours away. 2. My dad moved 30 years ago. Reply 5. I've had a lot of friendships end this way. I like being loyal and giving, but at some point it's gotta be a two-way thing. Story 4. Kept borrowing money for me to feed their kids or get their kids medication. It's an emergency. And truly, they were destitute. These instances were plausible. But one day, after being told one of the kids had been hospitalized and released home, and between the Uber rides to and from the hospital they didn't have enough for his meds at the pharmacy, I signed on to Facebook and saw pictures of them, sick kid included, at a block party. Destroyed the friendship for me. For the record, I never expected them to pay back borrowed money for food or medicine. I was happy to help. Those kids were like my kids too. It was betrayal and finding out I wasn't loved like I loved, that got me. Reply 1. I had a friend who was complaining that his power was about to get shut off. I pulled up his account with the utility company and paid a large chunk of it off. He thanked me profusely, then the next day posted on Facebook the new steering wheel that he bought for his iRacing setup he was trying to assemble. Wrote him off that day. Reply 2. Had a friend whose aunt was sick, and then she died. One of the daughters was the one who had to plan the funeral and all that. She put on Facebook that she was struggling with money and needed help with the cremation costs and other things in relation to her mother's death. So people donated to a GoFundMe that was set up for her. Got a couple $1,000s. Over the next few weeks, she was posting on Facebook all these things she was buying for herself. People called her out on it and she didn't care. Reply 3. That's why I write out the check to the funeral home, not give the person money. Some people are just scumbags. Reply 4. Had a similar thing happen to me in college. I had a job, he sort of did. Had like part-time lab work. He was always needing covered for rent, food, etc. I did what I could to keep the lights on and the rent paid. He periodically paid some money back, or gets a pizza or whatever. Honestly, I didn't really care. He had been my best friend since I was 5 years old. What was a couple $100 or even $1,000? It all came tumbling down near the end of the spring term. We were at the house, and his girlfriend wanted to go out bowling. Personally, I like bowling, but I literally did not have 2 pennies to rub together at that moment. I had just dropped all my cash covering utilities and rent for the whole house, and I didn't get paid for a few more days. So I said, no a-holes here, I will pass. I am literally out of cash. 2 seconds later, his girlfriend chimes in. You're always broke, always needing money. Don't you have a job? After that, I was seeing red, but I didn't explode. Just looked at my friend, who looked panicked. One of our other friends stayed behind after they left and informed me that she had heard I was constantly borrowing money from him, my friend. That I was always short on rent, utilities, and his girlfriend was pissed because it affected things they wanted to do, like taking trips. My friend had flipped the script, using all his money on wine and dining his girlfriend, then telling everyone we knew I was borrowing money when he was tapped out, as an excuse. Needless to say, I was pissed. Told him to grow up. I went home for the summer to visit my mom. Came back to town with us being evicted from the house. Turns out, he had decided to stop paying anything towards rent. Didn't tell me. Hid all the owner complaints and then was bailing out. Also, just as an extra kick to the teeth, I lost the deposit on the place, which I had paid. Apparently, he had been storing an old car battery in his closet. It had leaked, melted through the carpet and floor, and literally fell under the house. After that, and a bit more lying and drama, I finally just had a talk with him. Told him that I couldn't be friends with him until he grew up and took responsibility. Told him he could come talk to me again when he was ready to apologize and stop lying. It was the last conversation I ever had with him. It's been almost 20 years now. Story 5. When I realized that me being a good friend to her was actually just me being a caretaker with poor boundaries and putting up with years of emotional abuse. When that fog lifted, it was completely life-changing. Reply 1. Same. When the light bulb went off in my head, I realized I was just an unpaid assistant for 30 years. All the threats of ending our friendship if I didn't do exactly what she wanted, and other unhinged behavior towards me and others. Not sure why I put up with it. Just think I was repeating childhood family trauma and didn't know any better. Reply 2. Same. I actually ended the friendship. Then a year later she apologized, promised she had seen the error of her ways, etc. She asked me to come to a dinner party for her birthday with a group of her friends, and I agreed. For context, I'm crafty and like to decorate things. I bought her a cute bracelet for her birthday and decorated a little box to put it in. We sat down at the restaurant and she introduced me to her other friends by making some joke at my expense that I have forgotten. It got an uncomfortable chuckle, but her friends were actually nice. A little bit later, I gave her the gift. She said, Do you keep giving me boxes because you like them, or you think I do? None of her other friends laughed. I said, "Open the damn box, Mary," and left. That was the last time we spoke. Reply 3. Tried to do the box thing for my wife once. Dude putting all this cutesy crap and decorating a box, so her gift would be that much more special to only have her junk the box as she was tearing in to get to the gift she wasn't excited about, as our friends were still looking at the box that was tossed aside, asking me how long it took to make and such. Reply 4. My friend like this stopped talking to me, using me for free therapy, for a couple of weeks because she didn't like my advice. I realized I had so much more energy and was sleeping better. It's so one-sided because when I told her my problems, all she said was, "Oh," and went back to talking about herself. If she listened to my advice for a year and a half, she wouldn't have ended up getting in trouble with the police. Story 6. Everything was someone else's fault, on both the macro and micro levels. If it was an interpersonal issue, it was never him at fault, ever. Relationship problems, always his partner's at fault. Even when the same reasons caused each breakup, got into a verbal altercation at the bar, someone else's fault completely. It was too exhausting. Reply 1. I had one of these. The drama in her life always just happened to her. Exhausting is exactly the word. One day she decided my kids were the instigators of some evil, and I've never cut someone off so fast. Be gone! Reply 2. My ex-husband is like this. He once dropped a jar of salsa in the kitchen, made a huge mess when it shattered, and turned around and yelled halfway across the house at me because it was somehow my fault. I must have not put the lid on right. Absolutely, yes. My fault you dropped a jar of salsa and made a mess. Reply 3. My father is like that. Every time he knocks something off the table or whatever, he blames someone for putting it there. We could always navigate the natural mess a family makes, but he couldn't. Stuff was always getting in his way. Reply 4. The I'm never wrong group. I have a close relative who is like that, and our relationship now consists of existing in the same group, text chat for big family announcements. The problem with these kinds of people is they learn and grow in a fundamentally broken way. We all make mistakes and have to check ourselves from time to time. However, these people refuse, and even a conversation about nothing important, XU TV show, movies, etc., is an exhausting endeavor because their opinion is right, and yours is wrong if it strays from theirs. I remember the day I gave up on them. I just sat there and thought, why should I bother engaging with someone who makes me feel miserable most of the time? Reply 5. This was my best friend from preschool. We had a good run, but she was possessed by accusing everyone of doing things deliberately to wrong her that were completely misinterpreted. And after years of it, I just realized I was walking on absolute eggshells and not enjoying being around her. She would be passive-aggressive and completely unable to reflect. I tried to address it with her gently, as strongly didn't seem to work, and eventually after some very petty behavior gave up. I explained everything when I told her I was done, but open to talking again if she apologized, and made an effort to correct her behavior. Even laying it all out for her, she still denied everything. So that door is closed now, and my remaining friends are thankfully all easy relationships, where I don't agonize for hours. You only get one life. Story 7. He kept having kids with different girls, then bailing on them. I just couldn't watch it anymore. I left after the third one. Pretty sure he's at 6 or 7 now. Reply 1. Knew a guy like this. I don't know what his count is, but last I heard it was 4 with 4 different women by the time we were about 24. Would always count about child support. However, he would brag about how he refuses to wear condoms and how he came inside one-night stands. He was an idiot. Reply 2. I always wonder, how do guys like this find women who are willing to do it with such complete morons? Reply 3. Some women are also complete morons. I've heard the same crap from their side too. They keep sleeping with clearly crappy men, letting those men come inside them, then they're annoyed, not even shocked, when those men leave them. They have multiple kids with multiple crappy men. These women are also losers who barely take care of the kids they choose to have. Those kids are raised very badly and are the kind that run around stores screaming and breaking things. They swear at their teachers, and they're completely stupid and uneducated. The cycle continues. Idiots keep reproducing. Reply 4. I suspect he's hitting on a lot of women. Most reject him. The ones willing to do it with a complete moron are all that's left. Reply 5. I knew a guy like that. One day a woman knocked on his door, handed him a baby girl, said, "I can't take it anymore, you can have her." Then she left. She was a one-night stand from a year before that he didn't even remember. Some girl he picked up at the bar and never saw again. He did a DNA test, it really was his daughter. He took her to his mom's and dropped her off. He isn't involved in her life to any significant degree. The baby's grandma was in her 40s when she took over. That was in 1994, so the baby is in her 30s now. I sometimes wonder how it all turned out. Story 8. I was diagnosed with cancer a year after moving across the country from my friends from high school. I didn't ask for them to do anything except play some online games with me while I recovered from surgery. Not one of them did. They were playing other games. I could see in my various friends lists. But none of them would put aside the games they were playing to keep me company and take my mind off things. No texts, no phone calls, nothing. The only thing I asked for was time/online company, and they put in zero effort. This was the last straw in a long, long string of feeling like an afterthought. It's been 9 years and not a single one of them has even tried to contact me since then. Guess being an afterthought was too optimistic even. Reply 1. I feel you so hard on that. Nearly everyone kept their distance. It was very lonely. Then I see other friends get cancer and everyone rallies around them. Constantly checking in, sending gifts, asking how they can help. I had a little bit of that, but mostly just from family. My friends just stayed away for the most part. Story 9. She was a key witness to my rape trial but was too lazy to go into the police station to make a statement. She had 3 years to do it. I lost the trial, but it was close. I'll always wonder if I would have got justice if she had done it. Reply 1. 3 years? How could she not care even the slightest? I'm sorry, I hope you're doing better these days. Story 10. Everything was a competition that my friend had to win. The day that she noticed my brand new jug and said that hers was bigger was the day I realized that I didn't want to be friends anymore. Reply 1. Yeah, I'm in the midst of something similar. Been best friends since we were 12 and have been waiting for her to let go of this competitive mentality since we're 21 now. And after so many interventions and talks about this problem, she cannot seem to be able to change. I'm having trouble letting go or distancing myself because she's like a sister to me, but like a really jealous and competitive sister. Still don't know what I'm going to do about it. Reply 2. I had a friend that had brothers, and they all did the same thing. It was nothing but a non-stop competition either between them or with whatever friendly challenge or sport people were partaking in. Not to mention they all had egos on them and were all braggadocios about crap no one else cared about. None of us were ever impressed, but they didn't see or understand that. One day I met their dad that I don't really think was ever really in their lives, and I could tell immediately why they were the way they were. For the brief period of time I was around him, he would just gas himself and his kids up in the worst ways, like they were God's gift to the world. I didn't dislike them for that because they were all very nice otherwise, and even with the ego and braggadocios behavior, they didn't talk crap to or belittle anyone. It's just exhausting to feel like you're being asked to give them motivation for crap. You couldn't care less about whether they do it or not. Story 11. Found out he slept with my high school girlfriend and held that secret for 10 years. He also invited my 13-year-old sister out to drink and party with his/our friends. Drew the line, ended the friendship, and clocked him in the jaw for that one. I didn't learn he slept with my high school girlfriend until many years after the friendship ended. But that made a lot of things make complete sense. He was always extremely angry and ticked off at me whenever I spent time with her. He was never a friend, really. Story 12. We were supposed to move in together, the first move away from our parents. Fortunately, we were renting from my parents because the night before our move-in date, he called me to say he had gotten his own apartment earlier that day. without me. He then listed entirely everything about me that annoyed him and every mistake and flaw I had that he knew about. Since he was my best friend, it was a lot. There was no sign this was coming. We had only ever argued a couple of times. I never knew that so much about me was so distasteful to him. I was devastated. A couple of weeks later, he called and came over until I spoke to him. He was very apologetic. For reasons I would have completely understood had he told me. He had a breakdown and realized he needed to live on his own. Knowing it was going to mess things up for me, he made it my fault. He said he didn't mean any of it and was horrified about how he treated me. Yet, it was so detailed and specific, going back years to incidents that I had no idea were an issue. There was just no fixing it. I could never feel comfortable and trust him again. On one hand, I miss people I used to know. I don't miss him or think of him often or with nostalgia fondness. My daughter doesn't know who he is when she comes across old pictures of us, but she knows about other old friends since I mentioned them. On the other hand, it's been 20 years. It's hard for me to have close friends still, because I feel like they may be building lists of things I do wrong and ways I just am wrong and awful. And maybe they'll call one day when I least expect it and list it all. It wasn't good. Reply 1. That's rough, and I am sorry you went through that. I can certainly see how that would make it hard for you to trust people again. Reply 2. I feel you. I got kind of the same situation where a friend was keeping for so long a list of tiny little things I did, and that she hated. And there was no fixing this anymore, like you said. I replayed all the 7 years we were close, and imagining her going back home and crying and hating me. This was what was happening to her apparently. Apparently I was super mean to her, and she couldn't stand it. It's so hard getting back to trust people after this, but I'm told she still does that to other people, so I'm trying to cling on this idea that it's about her, not me. Maybe that can help. Story 13. She started routinely paying rent weeks late, and blocked me from her social media so she could secretly post about going to concerts and music festivals with her rent money. Reply 1. Currently dealing with this with my roommate. She thinks we're the best of friends but then can't pay rent for weeks after it's due and never does the one chore we ask her to do. Dishes. I'm still waiting on the April rent. Story 14. He dated my best friend. They met because of me, and she utterly trashed his heart and cheated on him. Just awful. I regret introducing them. Our friendship got ghosted during their relationship, and after they broke up, it was clearly done. Sucks, but I get it. Still miss the dude. Hope he's happier now that he got the F away from everyone. Reply 1. I had a similar situation. I warned him she was crazy, but he went ahead. After crap went completely sideways, he said I didn't warn him enough, and I said, what part of bottomless pool of need? Don't do it? Did you not understand? I didn't date her. I don't know what she's like in a relationship. I played therapist a whole bunch of times after they broke up, and during the ensuing custody crap show, yup. But eventually he just stopped responding when I would reach out. Try not to beat yourself up. You couldn't have known how it was going to go. Story 15. She faked dying of cancer. Edit. People are asking for the story. I have never written it down. English isn't my first language and it still upsets me deeply, so bear with me. Her name is Nina, and yeah, that's her real name, because I am done giving a if. We were best friends since our teens, through our youth, our 20s. Didn't have a lot of contact in our 30s, but that mostly because of me moving for my career. Yet I remained being very fond of her, and still would lend her $3,000 during the pandemic to keep her business afloat. In a heartbeat. Contact almost dried out after that. I pinned it to the fact that my proud friend just was too ashamed to owe me money and not being able to pay me back. 2 years later, she wrote me a message out of the blue in the dead of night along the lines, "Thank you for everything you did for me. I want you to know that I will always love you." Called her immediately, and she was sobbing, telling me she was dying of cancer like her mother did when we were 19. Told me that she refuses to continue with chemotherapy and that it will be over in less than a year. I cried with her, offered my help, asked if it would be okay if I visited her, but she refused. The following months, I would check in with her, sent her messages, pictures from back of the day, asked if I can do anything, and of course eased her mind about the money she owed me still. She barely wrote back, wouldn't let me visit her, wouldn't pick up the phone. I would lie if I'd say that her behavior didn't raise some red flags with me, but hey, this is Nina, my ninny, my oldest friend, so I brushed it off, told myself I had to respect my dying friend's wishes and grieved by myself. Then, about 3 months in, her ex called me. Her ex, the man she had been together with for more than 10 years and who, as she told me, threw her out on the street 2 years ago, during a pandemic, which of course made me hate him and never contact him again. Her ex, the man she had been together with for more than 10 years and who, as she told me, threw her out on the street 2 years ago, during a pandemic, which of course made me hate him and never contact him again. The first thing he did was apologize for not calling earlier, that he needed some time to recover. Then he unloaded. Nina told him 2 years prior almost the same thing she told me a few months back, that she had lung cancer and that the odds weren't in her favor. He tried to support her as good as he could. He is himself chronically ill and lives of a disability pension. He would cook for her, plant her favorite flowers in their garden, made a collage of pictures of her mom, and after they'd spend a beautiful evening together, she would say things like, "You know, this might be one of our last happy nights together," totally crushing him and his spirits every time. She would pretend to have chemo on the weekend for several days at a time. He wasn't allowed to visit, was, if even, only allowed to accompany her to the entrance outside of the hospital because she needed to do this on her own. She would write him during her hospital stay, for example, that the rescue helicopters are flying like crazy today, praying emoji. And I know it sounds insane in hindsight that he didn't see through it for so long, but god damn it, you don't think anybody is capable of pulling something like this off, especially not a person you effing love and whom you believe to know wholeheartedly? Also the level of manipulation, the sheer sophistication with which she made the big lie believable through an endless stream of tiny little lies, is flat out frightening. But, well, everybody has to learn sometime, I guess. One weekend, whilst she was pretending to have chemo, she went silent, which was unusual since they would be messaging several times a day, plus a phone call every night. He was worried sick and called the hospital in a panic, fearing for the worst, asking for Nina. Receptionist lady said she would have to check with other staff since there is nothing in her computer. She called him back after a while to let him know there was no patient with the name Nina's surname at the hospital. And after a pause, "I am sorry, sir, but a Nina's surname hasn't been a patient in this hospital for years now. This is not a large city. There is no other hospital that does chemo, and not within a 2-hour drive. And it was the bloody effing night where she would allow him to drop her off occasionally." God, that poor man. Yeah, I feel like crap for thinking so ill of him for so long. Anyways, after the phone call, he of course was still in disbelief. So he called the woman Nina shared her shop with, who also was very surprised to hear that Nina and him were still a couple and still living together. Because Nina of course told her shop partner that they broke up. Which was very believable since she had been seeing another man who rented her a tiny flat near the shop. A lawyer, a married man with 2 children, mind you. Like Nina's a-hole of a father who left her, her brother and sick mom for his affair partner back in the day. The affair with lawyer man started, you guessed it, 2 years prior. Oh, and apparently Nina had also sold her share of the shop a while back, which was also news to her ex, and me as well. He confronted her when she came home on Sunday night after chemo. Turns out, nope. She never had cancer. She made it up to cover up the affair. The reason he couldn't reach her the whole weekend was because she was on a trip to Italy with her lawyer man and lost her phone. And yes, she deliberately told me and other people that were close to her that he'd thrown her on the street so that we wouldn't talk to each other because we weren't supposed to know about her cancer. He, of course, threw her out immediately, and for real this time. It was the same bloody effing night she told me she had cancer. Here's the thing, I knew every word he told me was true. I knew it in my heart. There were signs, tiny red flags, things that wouldn't add up. tons and tons of it over the course of a friendship that lasted for decades. But of course I also didn't want to believe it, so I still made my own phone calls. I called the woman Nina had her shop with, called people from back in the day and people living in the same small city that might know her. And well, turns out the woman I thought was one of my oldest, dearest friends, my tiny ninny, is a deeply deranged, incredibly cruel and stone-cold psychopath that leaves a path of destruction in her wake. I don't know what went wrong, if it was her mother's death, who truly was one of the greatest, kindest, funniest women I have ever met, that triggered this sickness in Nina, or if it has always been there, lurking. I don't now, and it doesn't matter. I haven't contacted Nina since her ex called me that evening. Him and I have become friends again, trying to help each other heal from her. Nina hasn't contacted me either. She probably knows what's up. I don't care. I got my closure by making sure Lawyerman's wife knows what her husband is up to. And if you by any chance are reading this, Nina, yeah, it was me. And you can keep the bloody money if you promise me that I don't have to ever see your face again. Reply 1. Hey, my mom did that. She abandoned the family, and then when none of her children wanted anything to do with her, she lied about having cancer. That was like 15 years ago. Never gonna speak to her again. Story 16. Best friend of 19 years tells me to go talk to a cute guy at a wedding guy, and I hit it off and start a long-distance relationship. Best friend of 19 years gives me the silent treatment for no reason for 3 weeks, including my birthday, because I told her that guy and I are doing really well. Best friend of 19 years starts talking to me again, but never explains herself and never apologizes for acting like a child. Never says she's happy in a new relationship. Never shows any support. Best friend of 19 years and I start hanging out again, but never explains herself and never apologizes for acting like a child. Never says she's happy in a new relationship. Never shows any support. Best friend of 19 years and I start hanging out again. But I keep a safe distance emotionally, because why did she get upset about me starting a relationship with someone that she told me to go talk to in the first place? After 1.5 years of hanging out again, found out that best friend of 19 years still talks crap about my relationship behind my back. That was the final straw for me. Blocked on everything, moved on. Actually, much less stress in my life since cutting her off. No longer best friend of 19 years. Story 17. I had supported her through a terrible breakup, canceling her wedding the morning of, with an abusive alcoholic, that could be its own separate post, and countless other personal tragedies for a decade. She has a wonderful heart but cannot get out of her own way and is completely unreceptive to any type of advice, no matter how gentle. I became worried about her as I noticed her mental health declining, and essentially had a come to Jesus with her, and 2 other friends in an incredibly supportive, safe setting. She lashed out at me and said she was sick of my drama and didn't need me as a friend if I couldn't support her. I told her if by support she meant watch her spiral into yet another black hole she'll need help crawling out of. Then she was right. I said, I'm always here to help you, but I can't watch this and do nothing. She never spoke to me again. It broke my heart, but after speaking to another former friend of hers with a similar experience, I realized it's just her pattern. Reply 1. Sounds similar to my ex-BFF. I was told I was enabling her by someone who refused to speak to me because I checks notes, made her go to therapy and be sober. So, I would enable her to relapse. She called my work at one point as my sister, I don't have any, and had me go pick her up from the hospital as she had cut herself and needed 50 stitches. Maybe not too similar, as she loved male emotional attention, and I was just getting in the way of that by enforcing boundaries and having the guys also refuse her drinks. Story 18. He yelled at me for correcting him on the pronunciation of a word, something he did to me all the time, despite being wrong. He yelled and yelled at me. I said I'm done, bye, but not before calmly getting in 1 barb at him. Story 19. So stupid. He was an army vet and a staunch proponent of freedom of speech. He believed that anyone can say whatever they want, and there should never be any repercussions of any kind for whatever anyone says. I told him, the guarantee of freedom of speech in the US just meant the government can't arrest you. It doesn't mean freedom from social repercussions. He disagreed so vehemently he blocked me and hasn't spoken to me since, thereby proving my point, ironically. Reply 1. When will these idiots figure out that while they might have the right to say what they want, everyone else has the equal right to not listen or tell them to F all the way off? Story 20. She became very insecure and jealous when I got into law school. I came home to visit after my first semester and we caught up over coffee. From my perspective, I had hardcore imposter syndrome. School was stressful and hard and scary, but I was learning a lot, challenging myself, and meeting nice people. She started to pull away, to no-show for phone dates, and to generally blow me off. When I finally got a hold of her, she told me, "You went off to law school and suddenly thought you were better and smarter than everyone else." My jaw was on the floor. That narrative existed nowhere but in her own mind. I told her she was wrong and that her perspective hurt my feelings. She cried and yelled, "I know, I'm effed up about friendships with women." That was the last time we ever spoke.
Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you want to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.